Orchinistas, welcome to the channel Forever Orchids. My name is Tracy. If this is the first time you're joining me, welcome. I'm so glad that you stopped by. Today, we need to repot. We need to repot some orchids. This is wintertime, middle of December. This is not the best time to repot orchids, but I've got some that in the last video of my very last, keep my fingers crossed, very last orchid haul of December of 2023, we talked about this plant here, this LC, it's no longer LC, it's a Cattleya Dinard. Cultivar name is Blue Heaven. How I went to water it and the whole thing just fell out of the pot. And this is the condition of it. So I soaked it in some sea kelp extract because I want to try to get some more roots growing. I've got one very tiny root tip starting right here from this pseudobulb. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with this plant. I really hope I can save it. I don't like having plants in ICU. It's just something extra that you have to worry about. And I don't want to do that. But today I want to do an experiment. Most of my Cattleyas I plant in clay pots with bark. I find that works and has worked for almost over 20 years. I'm bordering on having orchids closer to 30 years. So I know Cattleyas probably for me at least 20 years that I've been growing Cattleyas, and I have found that in my growing environment, indoors, in southern exposed windows, they do better in clay pots. My Phalaenopsis, I grow in plastic pots, usually in sphagnum moss. Okay, so we're going to do an experiment. Recently, I rescued a Cattleya orchid from one of the places that I volunteer at, and it was planted in sphagnum moss. And I'm thinking, okay, I've never seen Cattleyas grown in sphagnum moss. Even from your commercial growers, they're coming usually in seedling bark. So it really surprised me. So I've left that particular plant because the pseudobulbs are all nice and firm and plump. So it's doing okay in the sphagnum moss, and I don't even know how long it's been in the sphagnum moss. What we're going to do today is we're going to pot it up in sphagnum moss. And that way I will be able to see the differences and how well this one grows, if sphagnum moss is going to help this one at all. This pseudobulb here is the newest one, and it's nice and plump. The other ones are a little shriveled. There is one back here that's a new growth, and I tell you what, I'm wondering if I've got two plants here. I started to pull this apart a little bit, and I'm just wondering because I'm not really feeling the rhizome. That's old pseudobulb right there. Yeah, I think we've got two plants here. I think those are just roots. I think I've got two plants here. So the question becomes, do I want to plant them? Yeah, look, two plants. I didn't have to do anything with a rhizome. This is an old dead rhizome there. These were some that were planted down in the media, so they've rotted. They're old anyway. So, okay, wasn't planning on that, having two separate plants. But what we're going to do, and I may change it up now. I was going to put the whole thing, when I thought it was all one plant, I was going to put it in a 4-inch pot. I'm wondering now if I should go on and put this in a smaller pot until we get a good root system. I've gone and gotten two other pots now for these plants. This is just a little small 3-inch clay pot, and I was able to get the roots down in this pot here. So this one is going to be fine with our new growth right here. I should be able to get, because the roots are wet, they're more pliable, and I'll be able to push gently the whole plant a little bit closer to the back, to the back here, give me more room here for at least another year's growth. See if we can't get this one growing better than what it was. And then the second plant here can just fit in this little 2-inch pot here, and we'll see about getting this one to continue to grow. Now, I've got my sphagnum moss here. It's been soaking in sea kelp extract. I'll take this one out here. I'm just going to wring it out. There was a little bit of bark with this sphagnum moss, a couple pieces, and that's fine. Just have a little bit. I could put bark in the bottom of this pot if I wanted to. Might put a little bit just to cover up the hole that's down there, and that's fine. The clay will wick the moisture out of the sphagnum moss, and that'll be fine. And I'll just keep an eye on my watering schedule. With the sphagnum moss holding the moisture for longer periods of time than bark will, I've just got to keep an eye on the how dry this moss gets. But what I'm going to do is take the moss here and just wrap it around these roots here. Get this one here that's sticking up. Let's see if we can't bend it down. Being mindful of the new root tip that I see coming out right here, right there. Being mindful of that. And getting this down into the pot. And I've got some more room because I'm going to now push this against the back here. Oh, wait a minute here. Hold on. This is the new growth, so I need to push it to where let this be the back so that I've got, you see how much room I've got now from this pseudobulb to here? So that'll give me room for new growth. And we're just going to put some more sphagnum moss in there. Get it here, and you can kind of see how much water it holds for just a little bit of it. And I don't have to pack it in tightly, but I am going to press down just slightly on it so that, there's my root tip. Yeah, there's my root tip. Okay, I'm just going to press down on it slightly so that now that plant, see as I shake this pot, that plant is not wiggling in the pot. Your orchids always, no matter what kind of orchid they are, they like to feel secure in their environment. Otherwise, they will not grow as well as they would normally if they did not feel so secure. You've got a little bit of roots here, and we'll press down into there. And that's all I'm going to do with that. And we're going to keep an eye on it and see how it does in sphagnum moss. And keep an eye on the little root tip that was growing over here. And see, once this finishes maturing, it'll start putting out its roots. And hopefully I can get them to grow down into the pot and not over the pot so that I can keep this in there. But we're just going to experiment with it. Why not? I got so many of them. Let's experiment with it. We'll do the same thing with this little guy here. Just put a little bit of bark down in the bottom. Not much. Just a few pieces here. And then the same thing with this little seedling right here. We're just going to take these roots and kind of bend them into a little bit of a ball. Take some sphagnum moss around them, holding them with my fingers here. Let's move this plant out of the way so you can see here. Get some more sphagnum moss. Wring it out really good so that it's just damp. Look at how much water it holds. So much. And I'm just going to kind of form a little ball with the sphagnum moss. Just get it in my hands like this, and then I'm going to pop it down into the pot. And I'm just adding a little bit more here in front of that new growth. And that's really all I need to do. Put a label in it as to what this is, and we'll see if we can't grow another little seedling. Sometimes a lot of the commercial growers, they will put more than one plant down into a pot. And even though these are Mariclones, you can get some that just aren't quite genetically up to the other ones, which could be an exact reason why this one is smaller than this one, even though they were potted up together. The other one could have just hogged up more nutrients. So we'll see what happens with this seedling here. But for now, we're just going to leave them like that. Okay? All right. I have another Cattleya Dinard, and I really just haven't been all that happy with it since I got it. There are some new root tips growing out of it right here, but half of the pot is styrofoam. And I'm just learning in my environment that is just not going to cut it. I'm going to take out, and we're going to look at this together and see what this orchid looks like. I'm taking out this clay pot designed just for clay pots, and it is a stake that goes in your clay pots, and you put this down over the rhizome of your orchids, and it helps them to feel established in their pot when you're repotting them. I had used a bamboo skewer to stake it upright, but look, guys, I mean, it has hardly any root system, hardly at all. And we are getting a lot of new root tips growing out. Can you see those there? So we can clean this up later, dump it out. Look at all the styrofoam shoved down in the bottom. Styrofoam peanuts. I'm going to repot in this same pot. And I think what I'm going to do with this one is we're going to do a mixture of bark, Orchiata bark, and sphagnum moss. I've still got a little bit of sphagnum moss left. Not much over here in my pot. That big piece of bark out there. I had top dressed this when those new roots were coming out. I had top dressed it with some sphagnum moss. Oh, and I think, look here, what's that? Lava rock's not going to hurt anything. Looks like they had a little bit of lava rock and bark and this styrofoam. They did have some charcoal. So the media that it was planted in was not a bad thing for the plant. I just feel like in my environment, when half of the pot was full of styrofoam, that it just wasn't getting enough water retained within the pot. And I also typically don't like, in my environment, I don't like this many holes in my pots. Everybody loves orchid pots. I have just always found in my environment, in my watering schedule, that they just don't work very well for me. What I'm doing right now is I'm picking out some of the lava rock because that is inorganic, so it's not going to break down like your bark would. I'm just going to reuse it. It's not going to hurt a thing. I'll put it in the bottom. If I had more lava rock, I would put it down in it too. Which reminds me, I have a new media that I've got one of my Cattleyas that I purchased that is in, and I think I'm going to go get some of that. And we will talk about that new media. It's not really new, it's an old media, but I haven't used it in decades. And I think I'm going to go get some of that and add to this plant too. So this new media is called Permatil, or Vol Block is another name for it. It's an expanded slate. Now, I have seen it in much larger pieces than what the new bag that I just got. These are really small pieces here of it. So I'm a little disappointed that they're not any bigger. So I'm not quite sure. I got this at a local garden nursery, so I'm not quite sure where to get the larger sizes. But we're going to work with it because this Cattleya here, we've got new roots growing, and I feel like this is still relatively a seedling, that the smaller diameter would be okay. Smaller diameter is not going to give you a lot of air. You've got to be careful about that. On seedlings, you can do smaller media on your seedlings. On your larger Cattleyas, most of the time you really shouldn't do something fine like this. You want more air. I think we're going to be fine, other than as long as it doesn't come out of these holes. We'll put a big piece of charcoal over the biggest hole down in the bottom of this pot. See that big hole right there? See? So we're just going to put a piece of charcoal over that one. Water will still get through, but it'll keep the media from falling through. Okay. And then I've got some lava rock that came out of here that I'm going to put down in the bottom, and that'll help weigh down the pot. And we've got some of this permatil. And I'm actually, let's see here. I'll make sure this permatil is not going to come through these holes here. And we've got some charcoal. Don't mind putting a little bit of that in there. That was left over. I've got charcoal, but it's fine to use some of this. Not going to hurt anything. Use some of our bark. I'm just making up the mix as we go. No big deal. Put some sphagnum moss in it a little bit. Maybe some more permatil. Not going to hurt anything. And I'm just going to set the orchid here. This pot's a little big for it, to be quite honest. And I'm wondering if I shouldn't go on and put this one in a smaller pot too. I tell you what, orchids like to have their roots be a little bit more root bound. And this is an awful lot of pot. And I know this is what it came out of. So I don't know, guys, whether I should keep it in this one. And Sam will do it this way, so I've got a lot of new space for the growth if I keep it in this pot. And I mean, right now with these roots, there's hardly any long roots on the plant. And if I plant it down this far, then I don't want to cover up the media. I don't want the media to come up to here and rot. I want the media to be about right in here. These root tips here were growing down in the media. These were on top. So I'm just going to put the media up to here. That little root out of the way. We're just going to put the media up to here. This rhizome can sit on top so that these roots will get them to grow down. I'm going to put some sphagnum moss on the top here. So I've got a little ways to go to fill up a little bit more in the pot here. I'm going to use some of this larger bark here. Okay, I think that will work. See how my roots are a little bit above, and then I've got the top of the pot here is going to be right about here. So I think we're going to be good there. Ooh, let's see here. I think we're definitely going to have to use this again, and we're going to put some bark around here, a little bit of sphagnum. So those root tips will keep going down in some moisture. I'm just top dressing with the sphagnum moss because I want those roots to be able to find moisture, and then they'll grow on down into the media. And I think we're going to need a little bit more sphagnum moss. Some more bark here on the top. Whoops. See, there's hardly any roots to keep it stable. Keep it down in there. Take some more out here. Alrighty, let's try this again. Try this again. One of the reasons why I am potting this up this time of year is because of those new root tips that are growing. That I do feel like I'm going to be okay with this plant. I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. Doesn't matter how many years I've been growing orchids, I still get nervous from time to time as to whether or not I'm actually doing the right thing for the plant in my environment. All right, get some of that bark down will help stabilize this plant. Okay, she's standing up on her own. That's good. So what I'm going to do now is take this clip right here, and I'm going to go in between this growth here and this one. That's where I'm going to try first to put this. And you push way down with it. Let me see if that's where I actually want it. Because I'm trying to get it, make sure that I've got the back part here closer to this side. This was new growth, so we'll have room here for new growth to move this direction. So if we can get it growing properly, I don't know if I can get this clip. It's called a rhizome clip. I don't know if I can get this clip pushed down like it was, because they actually had this part inside of this hole. And that is a lot deeper than I feel like I should go. Okay. Doesn't really want to go in that spot. If this rhizome clip doesn't work, I can always take my stake, put my stake in back in here, stake this with some green Velcro, and that will also help the plant feel more secure. I think the rhizome clip is going to work a little bit better until these new roots get down in that media and start getting attached. But until then, that is all for repotting up some Cattleya Dinard Blue Heavens. And I'll put up a picture of what the plant looks like, what the flower looks like. Gorgeous, gorgeous Cerulean. Gorgeous, gorgeous. So until next time, guys, happy orchid growing. Bye.